Hello everybody, my name is Dean McLaughlin. I am the Head of Risk Management and Compliance for World Volunteer, and I thank you for taking some time to watch or read through our Teacher Chaperone pre-departure preparation. Now the purpose of this is obviously to help us all to be on the same page, to provide a little bit more information to you about how we like to run our trips, how things may take place on the ground, and just to try to sync up the way that we run things and the way that you run things, and how we can together lead really successful and fun and safe trips. So here's a list of the things that we're going to just briefly touch on, and we're going to start with just a little bit about risk management and compliance. Of course, this is something that is always ongoing. It's something that takes place before the trip, also during the trip, and also post-trip. So this is something that is very important to us, and we consider that everybody who works for World Volunteer, it is our responsibility to be highlighting any risks, highlighting any issues, and to be addressing them, and then also to be reviewing them as we move forward. And actually a part of mitigating our risk is to provide this presentation to teachers and to schools today, so that we are more aware of one another and more aware of how we're going to work together. So one of the very important aspects of our trips is our team meetings and briefings. Now these are going to take place at the very beginning of the trip, each day of the trip, and there will be various activity and safety orientations that will take place prior to specific activities as well. This is where we get to ideally speak with you about your expectations, and then speak about the things that we need to communicate, and just do this in the best possible way to ensure that everybody understands, and that we can do everything in a very safe and a very fun manner. So the very first meeting, we would ideally love to include all teachers and all of our leaders. This should take place before we have any activities together with the students. So it might be just when we arrive at the hotel, we'll just give the students a little bit of time, use the bathroom, whatever they need to do. We will go off to the side and all together sit down and go through some of this information, so that we're all clear and everything is well aligned before we actually start the trip and before we actually address the students. So there's a number of things that we're going to cover during that meeting, as we've detailed here, and I mean, importantly is we'll go briefly over the itinerary to make sure that our understanding of what's going to happen is the same. We will delve a little bit into medical and dietary, just to make sure that the information we have is the same as what you have, and to see what medical plans you might have in place, to understand the school's first aid protocols and this kind of thing. So this is a very important part of this meeting. We will touch on the traffic light system a little bit later on, but this is something that we can use throughout our trips, during the trips, to actually help to assess risk and keep everybody safe. And then also just talk about, okay, what would teachers be comfortable to cover during their briefings, and what would you like us to cover? And then also there's other guidelines and other, things like phone use, evening activities, lights out, things like that we can just make sure we're on the same page with, and be able to manage that very well between us. So that's the very first meeting before we meet the students, and then this next meeting on orientation is when we're all together, students, teachers, and of course our World Volunteer leaders. And here's where we welcome everybody. We introduce ourselves formally. We give an introduction to the country, to the program, to the week ahead for the students, so they have an idea of what's coming. We can of course answer questions there if needs be, but here's kind of where we set out the guidelines of how the trip is going to run, and all the fun stuff we're going to get to do together. We also, so once we sort of get through, I guess, the formal part, answer a few questions, we'll then again give the students a bit of downtime, and then we're going to ask the teachers to please help us to introduce the students to us who may have severe allergies or severe medical issues that we should be aware of. We want to do that obviously a little bit more privately on a one-on-one basis. That often helps students to feel more valued and more like they're recognised, and that we know who they are, and we can keep a closer eye on things, especially when it comes to severe allergies and that kind of thing. So that will all sort of take place ideally the very first night, but it could be a day. It depends on when you arrive. But this will happen before we actually go out and do anything together. So we're all a little bit more aligned and synced up. We also have what we call activity orientations or safety briefings, a number of different names, essentially the same thing. And this will be more activity specific. So these briefings may take place at a new location, at new accommodation, a project site, or at a night market, anywhere where some level of risk may exist. So this briefing obviously will be specified to the activity. Our leaders will deliver it. But of course, again, beforehand, we'll quickly run through and say, hey, this is what we're going to talk about. Are you okay with this? Is there anything that you would like to add? And then we'll launch into it and deliver that information to the group. Everybody needs to be there. Anybody who is participating in this specific activity, we need them to be present. And we'll ask for your assistance to organise that. We'll also ask for your assistance if we need students to pay attention and that kind of thing. Because when we're talking about activities, safety, especially snorkeling, kayaking, these kind of things, we really need to get that message clear across and keep everybody safe. We will then also have a leader and teacher briefing each day, and we'll agree on what is a good time for that, because sometimes it can be in the morning, sometimes it can be in the evening, but this is just kind of like a daily, I like to call it, checking the pulse, see how everything's going. We want to know, as teachers, we want to know how your experience is going, if you're enjoying yourself, if you have any concerns, if you're feeling okay, and then also how do you feel the group is going, how do you feel the students are enjoying things, and just highlight any concerns, any illness, injury, incidents that we want to reflect on, or anything that we want to plan for also for the following day or for that particular day, depending on when we do this briefing. So we could talk a little bit about the itinerary, about some risks that may be coming that we want you to be aware of, this kind of thing. So it's all very logical and it makes sense, but we like to make a genuine effort to make this a formal meeting. So we make a determined effort to get that information across to each other to move forward as a united team. And we ideally, as I mentioned at the bottom there, we love everybody to be present because we just want to make sure everybody's getting the same information and everybody's hearing the same concerns, and then we can adjust as we go along. Okay, so you might have seen a couple of times there the mention of a traffic light system. Now this is sort of a risk assessment or just a general safety tool that we have implemented. We've actually always used something like this in the background, but we want to formally bring it forward, and we want to welcome teachers into this process, and we would like your engagement and your participation in this process. So World Volunteer encourages every teacher and leader to dynamically assess and manage the risk of each activity or scenario. So we have a lot of well-qualified people amongst all of our teams, so many eyes looking on many things can help to keep everybody safer, and then just a constant sort of reassessment as we go along. So just to walk through this, it is what it sounds like. A green light ideally means go or proceed with caution. So if everybody's happy, everybody's comfortable with the process, with the activity, then we move forward. A yellow or amber light is when somebody may have a concern or a question about an activity or about equipment or about staffing or about the ability for certain students to be able to participate. It can be any number of things, but essentially anything that you're unsure about, you can just say, excuse me, I just want to amber light this. Can we just talk about this for a second? And I think it's great if we use that terminology as well. It makes it very clear what you're trying to convey. So, say a yellow amber light means, hey, I just want to discuss this. And then ideally we can just move on and we can green light that one and move on to the next thing. And when I say move on to the next thing, it's not as if we just tick a box and move on. No, we're constantly reassessing what's happening around us and paying attention to all sorts of factors that may take place in a particular scenario. So, and a red light, of course, that's very clear. It just means stop. Hey, I want to red light this activity. I would like to talk more about this. I'm concerned about the safety. I'm concerned about the weather. I'm concerned about the traffic, whatever it happens to be. We stop as a group. You come and speak to us. As a leadership group, we get together. We discuss whatever the issue is. And ideally, hopefully we can overcome that issue, we can address that issue, and we can turn that into a green light. However, if this is something that we cannot come to terms with due to whatever reason that might be, then there is always a possibility that certain activities or certain parts of the itinerary are changed, modified, cancelled, so that we can move forward in a very safe way and with a safety mindset. Because we always want to be putting safety, and I know this is a little cliche, but safety first. 100% of the time, safety first, followed by fun and learning and all of the other exciting stuff that happens on our trips. So we are all responsible. We will all participate in this process. We can also introduce this to the students. They can highlight things that they're not sure about. But this is something as a leadership management tool that we will be using throughout our trips. And this is just a little bit of a flow. I mean, I've just kind of explained it, but this is a bit of a flow chart of how things could potentially proceed. But the most important is, you see there at the bottom, safe, fun, and then learning. Okay, so roles and responsibilities. This is also something that's really important, just so everybody knows what they need to do, what's expected of them, and so that we can just make sure everybody feels involved and included, and clear about what their responsibilities are. So again, just briefly, what we would love and what we expect and what we would like from teachers and chaperones is obviously to support the whole team. So we all need to work together. We need to communicate really clearly about what's going on. If we do that, we're always going to be able to resolve anything that pops up in front of us. We need your support, obviously, when it comes to supervision, when it comes to discipline, when it comes to pastoral care, when it comes to certain decisions that you as a carer in place of a parent or in place of a school executive can support us with. So that's often where we need your support. We also love it if you can help if we need to communicate with the school to clarify anything. But yeah, as I said at the bottom there, most importantly is for us all to work together. The responsibilities of leaders and guides, well, it's everything else, and it's everything above and beyond that line. So we are obviously responsible for the safety, for the enjoyment of the entire program and everybody that participates in the program. So students, teachers, and also our local teams, our staff, our logistics, our drivers, our caterers, whoever it happens to be. So we're responsible for their well-being and for making sure that everybody has what they need. So there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, and this is where we have a team to help to manage all of these things. Of course, ultimately, what we're all trying to achieve is to provide the best possible experience and the best possible outcomes for these trips. So we will always discuss with you if we need to make changes to itineraries. Perhaps there's information that's come to us, we need to modify something. We'll always talk to you, we'll get some feedback, and then we'll hopefully be able to make a decision and move forward if anything needs to be changed. All of our leaders are also first aid trained, various levels of qualifications, but we are all first aid trained. We will all work within our scope and within the policies and guidelines set forth by the school, and of course we ask the teachers to do the same. So that's kind of, I guess, our main role is really just facilitating everything and doing everything that we can to make a great experience for everybody. There is a responsibility put on the students as well, and we love it if this expectation can kind of be passed on a little bit before the trips. It's all very obvious, and I think it's something that already takes place anyway, but we mainly need students to be responsible and accountable for their own actions, to be upfront and honest if something is not right, if they're not feeling well, to communicate that with you, or if it's with us, if they feel comfortable speaking with us, we're going to relay that back to you, to be active and to contribute to the whole experience as much as they're able to support one another, to support other students and their friends and their buddies, and then also to be very respectful of local cultures, local team, local staff, and just, again, enjoy the place where we are and enjoy the activities that we're involved in. And there's obviously other stakeholders here. I won't go into a lot of detail, but we, as World Volunteer, we have our own support and communication network. You also have the school executive at your back, and then of course we need the parents ideally to hand over a bit of responsibility to you as teachers and to us, and allow us to sort of do what we do best and provide a great experience for everybody. So this is supervision, just very briefly on this. But this is in Koh Tao. This is the Muay Thai class that we run there as a part of that program. So supervision, you can see there we have the Muay Thai trainer at the front demonstrating a few things. We have one of the teachers on the right-hand side there, and kids are learning the stance and the footwork, and it's all a lot of fun. Plenty of supervision is required to make sure nobody gets too seriously injured and has a lot of fun. So I guess there's a couple of things that I just want to highlight without going into everything, and the most important thing is at the top there, do the students have easy and quick access to teachers? So do they know where you are or how to contact you in case something happens? So just sharing, making sure that students all know your hotel room, so if there's an emergency they can knock on the door and they can find you. If a student is unwell and they want to be able to find you quickly, if they need to contact their family, they need to be able to find you quickly. So we say always supervised, and that's kind of what that means, is just to be close by. And we will of course always support teachers when it comes to supervision. What's outlined here is, this is best case scenario. We will always communicate, and we can always step in and help and be a part of that supervision every step of the way. The buddy system, or the Never Alone system, is something that we encourage when we're in public places, especially students going to the bathroom. Grab a friend, take one or two friends with you, and we've got a whole nother scenario coming up about night markets, or if we happen to separate into smaller groups as well. But yeah, at the accommodation I mentioned about making sure that students know where your room is, but also doing room inspections or head counts each evening to make sure everybody is where they should be. We need your assistance with that. We're happy to support with that. But as WV, we will never enter anybody's rooms or lodgings, so we need teachers to be present anytime something like that is happening. So, but yes, we work together as a team to manage this. So whole group supervision is a bit more straightforward, I think, and this is something that you'll definitely cover as you're travelling through the airport with the students. And perhaps even this split group supervision. So how we run split group supervision, I'll give you an example. At a night market, if we decide, if teachers and leaders are happy to let the students kind of roam somewhat freely, we can absolutely do that. We're going to say a minimum of 4 to 5 in a group. We're going to give a very strict time, and we're going to give a very specific meeting point and make sure everybody is very clear about what that meeting point is, normally by actually taking them to the meeting point and saying, this is the meeting point, this is where we start, this is where we finish. Okay, take a photo, pin it on your map, whatever you need to do, but this is where we are. And then we give them a strict time, say 45 minutes for example, go off and roam around. At the end of 45 minutes, we want you to come back, we want you to check in with us, we want to do a head count, make sure everybody's good, and then we will most likely extend your time if everybody's here kind of on time. So this is, definitely a better way, rather than just giving people 2 hours to go off and maybe get lost or get into trouble or get involved in something that they shouldn't be. You can do that in 2 hours. In 45 minutes, you're kind of roaming the markets, you're spotting a few things, you're keeping an eye on the time, you're coming back, and then you get another 45 minutes if everything goes well. So this is the way we manage these kind of things. We will always discuss this with you to make sure that you're happy with all of that, and then we'll move forward on that basis. Communication. So this is myself with my team here in Siem Reap, getting ready to welcome a new group. So teacher communications. We're open to you at all times. So we'll provide a WhatsApp contact. We're going to meet with you each day, as we've already mentioned. You will have our WhatsApp contact details in case of emergency, or you just want to share some information and we're not together. Of course, please, anytime we're available to you during trips. And actually just before trips, we normally connect with you in a WhatsApp group where we're just going to say, hi, I'm Dean. We're going to see you at the airport in a couple of days. Anything you need, please let us know. Okay? And then post-trip, it's just a bit of a thank you, and then we normally close those WhatsApp groups and we move on. So teacher communications with students, of course, throughout the trip, at briefings, whenever it's necessary. You generally won't have much contact with the rest of our team unless you've already got a connection with the destination manager, who is often in those WhatsApp groups. And then we have a support network, as I mentioned, behind us. In case of emergency, there is an on-call manager, and then of course you can reach out to the school or to the parents as needed. Leader and guide communications, as I mentioned just before the trip, all the meetings throughout the trip, however you need to access us. we'll communicate with students throughout the whole trip at all the briefings and orientations, but we will never make contact with students before a trip, and we will never make contact with students after a trip. We have a strict social media policy. We are not allowed to contact or accept messages or anything like that, so there'll be no contact with students. And again, we have our destination managers, we have our on-call managers backing us up in case we need assistance, but as a trip leader we will not contact the school unless it's via the teacher, and we will never contact the parents unless it's via the teacher and the student, and it's requested of us to share information or something like that. But otherwise we will never have that sort of contact. Just getting on to incident management. Did not deliberately add that sound effect. So again, we're just going to touch on this, and this is really just to cover the various kind of main points of an incident if they happen, and that is to understand who is involved and what their role might be, to understand that the action that person or those people should take, and also to understand the communications. Who should they be informing? Who should they be updating information to? And this is really just to make sure that everybody, we're not crossing over, we're not wasting time, we're not all trying to contact the destination manager, for example, or contact the school. Each of us have a responsibility and a communication flow and actions that we should be taking based on our roles. So we will discuss that. We'll be very clear about who's responsible for what. But essentially, it comes down to like if I choose a trip leader, for example, what are our responsibilities? Well, we are responsible for everything on the trip. We're responsible for students, also for teachers. We're responsible for running the itinerary. So any actions that need to take place that will affect any of those people, we will take care of those. For teachers, I mean, your primary responsibility in the case of an incident is that you're going to look after the students and look after yourselves, and then leave the rest for us to do. So your role in an incident in regards to communication is going to be to help us to communicate with the students about what might be happening, and then to communicate with the school executive to inform them, perhaps to contact the insurance company if that's required. Anything World Volunteer related, we will be relaying that through our destination manager, through our on-call manager, whoever that might be, and then generally somebody at our high management level, if it's a serious incident, will also be directly in contact with the school, with the principal or whoever the main contact for the school is. So I think that's fairly self-explanatory, but in the case of an incident, we'll sort of outline this and we'll break out tasks. Here's who's doing what, and we move forward on that basis. And then, of course, keeping track of that timeline to make sure that we're reassessing and that we are making notes and we're recording whatever is happening at the time, and making sure that if it's an incident that's involved an injury or an illness or something like that, that person has primary responsibility and that somebody is with them at all times. So we have a great team amongst us and amongst you and amongst our local partners. So we very rarely have to deal with any serious scenarios, but we are very confident that with the training that we've provided to our team, with the training that you have, and with the great communication and teamwork that we've developed throughout the program, that we're going to be able to handle anything that comes along and keep everybody as safe as possible. That's the priority, and of course to have a great time. So that is all from me today. I'm sorry it's a little bit of a long presentation, but I hope there's some information that's useful. You can reach out to us at any time, so if you're already in contact with the destination manager or the trip leaders from your trip, please feel free to reach out and ask questions. You can reach me directly if you need to. I will make myself available, and I will provide my contact details in the support documents that come along with this presentation. So I would like to thank you very much. We look forward to welcoming you on the next trip that you join with World Volunteer, and we can't wait to meet you all soon. Okay, thank you very much.